Welcome to Citizen Development Live. I'm your host, Neil Miller. Our guest today is Chrissa Manoli. She is a program manager at an online travel service provider. Hey, Chrissa, how are you today?
Hey, Neil, I'm good. How about you?
Excellent. It's always good to speak with you. We've been friends for a long time, so it's exciting to get back in touch with you and hear about how things are going. Why don't you start off just telling us a little bit about how you got interested in processes and process management? How did your career start?
Yep. So, as you mentioned, we go back years ago, starting from my previous company where we were operating an asset service environment. At the time, we were looking to bring some order to the process chaos as part of the global asset service organization. And at the same time, see how we can improve and bring efficiencies in a mature service environment. Moving forward, right now, I am part of a global organization in transformation, many moving parties, a lot of processes locally that they are now transforming, moving to a more global and aligned structure. So processes obviously is the common denominator in both cases. The maturity of the organization that we need to operate in is the differences. From my experience, you cannot implement any type of transformation without adjusting even a bit the process environment that we are seeking to operate and making things more efficient. Either it is a digital transformation, you are adjusting your systems. Either it is an organizational restructure that you are adjusting your organizational structure, your people, and how you approach that. The process piece always is there. So right now in my current life, as part of a global business service organization, we're focusing exactly on this part, how we bring in efficient global processes and how we make sure that things make sense across the different verticals and across the different locations.
Yeah. Well, let's establish your technical knowledge first. Like, are you a coder? Do you know how to build things on your own? Like, what level of technical proficiency do you have?
Well, I wish to be a coder or a developer, given I find this very interesting. But actually, no, I'm not. My personal background is I have a background in economics. My master is also in economics and global economics. So it's something completely out of the hands-on engineering world, but having to operate, as I said, in a global organization, that technology is part of our DNA. It's inevitable to having to work in with systems, having to operate on systems, and our processes is very well supported through various systems. So I'm very much familiar with, but no, I don't have any experience whatsoever on developing or coding.
Yeah.
Well, on coding.
Yeah, developing things for sure. I'm going to ask you, where do you see the need for citizen development in most enterprises? Like, at what point do you feel like it makes the most sense? Obviously, you're not going to be letting citizens just develop anything out there in the really big complexity type thing. So what kind of framework do you use for deciding where this self-service model fits?
Is it? Okay, I would start. First things, I really like the citizen developer term, because I see the development has a couple of aspects there. Is the hands-on coding from one hand in the traditional, let's say, IT functions. On the other hand, is creating a logical structure or a framework which we need to operate. So by developing, we create something new that we need to support.
Mm-hmm.
My personal experience started again from my previous company, when, as part of our business, we needed to figure a way that is way more nimble, if I may use this expression, to actually self-service our need within my within my organization, within the self-service organization. We were looking, from one hand, to go away with a very manual, if I may allow, Excel-based or
Oh
form-based
yeah.
approach to something a little bit more robust from one hand. But on the other hand, we had to find a way that is not something that big that required developers dedicated to do that. Our need was there. Our need was immediate, and we had to very quickly find some solutions so that the business teams, and especially on the finance organization that I was focusing on, they
Mhm.
will be able to self-service themselves in a robust way, on a structured way, but at the same time, alleviate this high dependency that we have with the IT organization. In my current state, as I said, we are an organization going through a large transformation.
Mhm.
That means the majority of the IT and the development part of my organization needs to focus on a high scale IT projects
Right.
that requires their time, requires their effort, requires uh, coders to code, as we
Yeah. Yeah.
mentioned earlier. This doesn't, though, covers are areas where the team has needs to create workflows, if I may use that example,
Mhm.
or to be able to, as I said, give a more robust framework that would support them in their process journey without necessarily have to go through a very large demand funnel of the IT functions, or have to have a multi-annual plan in order to be able to support that. So I think the need, the agility, and the ability to simply address my pain point with something that I can manage myself, and by myself I mean within the business team, is what drive the need to approach, let's say, solutions related to citizen development. Actually, I feel that citizen developers come from the need.
Mhm.
It's an organizational response to those pain points. One more aspect that I wanted to highlight here is, from a business perspective, there are a lot of issues or a lot of areas that might have a very high impact on our day-to-day activities
Yeah.
that can be very easily addressed and tackled with a shift of approach to more, let's say, non-traditional solutions like a low-code, no-code application could offer. So obviously there is a shift of mindset sometimes required within the organization, but I feel that it's a little bit of a Pareto principle, that the 80% of the pain points
Mhm.
can be addressed by implementing some targeted solutions that the team can control.
Yeah. No, I love that. The idea that there are so many use cases out there. And when you look at, we sometimes will call it like that long tail. There's just like hundreds and hundreds of processes, workflows, little applications that need to be created that do affect day-to-day work, right? Every day we're in things. And for the most part, like you mentioned, we're limited to spreadsheets. We're limited to what Excel can provide us to be able to accomplish that. So being able to provide that next level up that can cover 80% of those use cases is a really fantastic thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I like to think that some things are designed for a certain purpose. And don't get me wrong about Excel. I
Yeah.
love it, but it's as much as I can do. It cannot cure world hunger. So I think there are more targeted things for its solutions. In organizations, of course, we try to scale and leverage our current solutions. but this is where we need to be open-minded. We need to think how we bring more value to a larger group, a larger audience with something that is more fit for the purpose. A spreadsheet will be great to put your budget in. It's fine. But when it comes to collecting approvals, for example, that is a use case that very easily pop in mind, or go through various stakeholders, I'm not sure necessarily if it is the best or the most compliant or the most audit-proof way in order to do that. The reason I'm calling this out is what I've seen, traceability through the process is a very key point that we were able to tackle in the past with the use of all low-code, no-code workflows that significantly improved our compliance environment, our processes.
That's a great point. And you mentioned a lot of use cases in the financial department, which you're going to see more compliance issues. And sometimes that alone is really what it takes to push you to a new level. You just can't get that kind of compliance auditing, audit logs and track logs, a paper trail within just email and spreadsheets. Like, you need something that's going to match that better. And I think that's a great example, not only within finance, but other organizations too. Like, they need that ability to track things and how important that is. It's a great point.
Finance is a very, let's say, standard example when I can see a lot of use cases, especially for the workflow. But I don't think that we should limit only to finance. In the past, we were using the solutions on HR processes, similar things as approval requests for PTO, employee PTO. On the other hand, you can see processes as, third-party risk management that I can think of, that requires the idea is something similar that comes from the business, like a form or a structured input, then a certain workflow that we can always refer back to. We were able on a previous use case to support even more complex processes, and I guess this is the beauty of citizen development. You can make the complexity based on the use case, and the more that you get exposed to that, you can learn. I don't think that there is a limitation to that. So from a very simple cases as let's say leave requests approvals, but I've seen use cases as user access requests, including SODs to be managed through such workflows. So the scalability can be defined by not only by the need, but also by the team, the people that are working on that. And again, I think being able to do it independently within a business team and the solution to grow organizationally with the team, I think it's something very powerful with the business.
Definitely. Let's switch to the topic of maturity of an organization and how it handles citizen development in different stages. You've worked at organizations that are extremely, we'll call mature, have been around for a long time, have a lot of things set up, and organizations that are trying to kind of build the airplane as it's in flight too. How would you compare the need for citizen development? What does it look like in those different stages of maturity?
Listen, I think the need for structure is always there, but the problem, the driver for the change might be different. In more mature organizations, we usually face an established structure of what we have is that we always did it that way. So the element of the change comes from the fact that we might have very antiquated processes that need to step up and come to a more new environment. And at the same time, on those organizations, usually there are layers driven by compliance. I mentioned that earlier, that now need to come up with the new market standards as we proceed.
Yeah.
So the need comes because of the maturity of the processes. On a newly organization that is currently developing and find the identity, is more of a setting up the foundation. Setting up the foundations in a better structure is an enabler, is going to enable, create better calibrated processes. So at the same time, we notice that a lot of things happen simultaneously. And just because a lot of things happen simultaneously, the need to create more capabilities within the organization that will work along with the IT teams. Like it's a reality where business, IT, in order to minimize their dependencies, will be able to move towards the same goals in a more structured manner. I don't see those things as competitive. I see those as complementary and potentially at some point to converge, but the driver for that change, I believe, is what makes the difference on the level of maturity. Another example that pops up in mind is in a more mature organization. A lot of the traditional IT functions focus on the maintenance of existing structures rather than working on new things.
Right.
Especially on organizations that have supply chain, that have a very heavy infrastructure that needs to be maintained. The business needs sometimes get deprioritized because of that. It's like we are working on incidents or maintaining an infrastructure. Why would we change that? This is a gap that could be perfectly covered by a citizen development solution. Similarly, as I mentioned earlier, in fast-pacing, evolving organization, where a lot of things happening, those are requirements that again might have a very significant impact for the business, are the ones that are actually get deprioritized because of a very large transformation that needs to have the spotlight for those things. So as I said, I see those complementary and contributing to the level of the organizational maturity and aspect of process and systems at the same time.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your experience with IT departments. You're not a coder, you're not directly in the IT team. Have you been able to be a partner with IT teams in most of the organizations you've been in, or has there been any points of contention, or how's that relationship been in your experience?
Listen, it's an interesting relationship, I would say, and it evolves every time with the years. But I would like to think that IT functions, to be precise, is our trusted business partner along this journey. Either we are hands-on developing citizen developers ourselves, and either we need to come up with solutions. So I see a lot of interaction and a lot of synergy. In many cases, yes, I was one of the receivers of a no, because what we are asking as part of the business was not a priority. And actually, this is how we started this journey back in the day, where we couldn't get in the demand planning of at the time IT department, but we still had the need for a solution in place immediately. This evolved though as we were progressing, and we were able to create a culture and a relationship of collaboration with the IT department. In my current organization, we are seeing more on enabling kind of way. The business is the driving point when it comes to the low code, no code solution, but we still collaborate and we are in collaboration with IT. The bottom line, and where we seek also their support or their advice, comes when it comes to the maintenance, because it's great, set up applications, set up systems, but how do we govern those? How do we maintain those? And I think there are a lot of best practices that we can leverage by the IT organization, even if the business teams are themselves the first point of contact, the owners of maintaining their applications within those. But I feel that it's a relationship that needs to be. It's a both ways.
Yeah.
Like both parties can benefit from each other. From one side, the business can be more independent, and they can actually alleviate some of the burden by the IT teams from one hand. On the other hand, they can get the guidance as well as some more advice and structure on what is the best practice in the IT world in order to do it.
Yeah, that's well put. Ideally, we have that kind of synergistic approach where we're helping each other like that. It's good. Chrissa, just as we close, as somebody who has actually done this, who's actually encouraged other people to be citizen developers, have equipped them, found ways to find the tools they need, what encouragement, what insight would you give to people who are starting that journey, trying to figure it out? What would you say to people like that?
I think that the biggest value added for me personally is, besides the fact that I was able to solve my problems, my immediate business needs by taking action and taking steps forward, and a meaningful action that we could own what we were doing. I think the journey with citizen development itself, it's a very interesting one. It's, I would say, opens up to a brand new way of thinking when we are approaching systems. Obviously, I don't know any coding language, but being able to start thinking on a certain way, being able to have an understanding of how things could work, go through the development life cycle. When you build, when you design, you build, you test, you get the feedback, you roll out. Getting this exposure, I think, is one of the greatest exciters. Also, is a big learning of how we do our process design. Process and systems go hand in hand. It's sometimes running the risk to oversimplify that, but the process right now in the 2024 world cannot be perceived outside a system framework. Going through this exercise gives to the user, to the developer, a perspective way more hands-on and way more insightful of how things would be approached, even on a larger scale, projects on a larger scale systems. So I think it's not only the aspect of solutioning, but the value that brings to the individual itself, the learnings, and potentially I can see this become a career changer for people that actually started working on that. I can use a real life example. When we roll out in my previous company the solution for a low-code, no-code solution, we brought in the team. It was an admin, literally an executive assistant that started to work with us and helping set this up and become an admin. Right now is a system admin. Getting exposed to this experience, it was a life-changing event because it opened new ways. doesn't need to have a C++ to do this. And sorry that I'm not sure if I should say that on record, but I think that it broadens the not only for the business the horizons, but also for the individuals that are hands-on or working on those as well.
Yeah, that's a great example. I love the idea of like just it can change your career. It can change everything that's going on about what's happening. Just to be able to build up a few of those skills and understand how those systems work, to be able to think in those terms, that's amazing.
Like imagine, and we can close with this, but imagine an individual that's having to deal with dull tasks, either it is sorting Excel forms, to be able right now making those a tangible thing that actually brings value to the business.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. Well, Chrissa, it's been great to hear your insights. Thanks for delving back into your past and coming up with some really good stories and examples from that. Thanks for being on the show. We look forward to being in touch with you again later.
Thank you so much, Neil. Thanks for having me.